Hello everybody! JGC Anime here. Today we are beginning a brand new type of series of videos on this channel where I will be going and reviewing every last One Piece movie that has come out. Why? Because I've reached Wano, and I've realized that now that I've reached Wano, I can watch most of the One Piece movies because I've been kind of holding off on watching every single one. So, as of today, in this video, I'll be going and reviewing every single One Piece movie every other week. So, I hope people look forward to that because I plan to review every single one, and I'm excited to check all these out. So yeah, let's just hop right into the beginning of this. So to start things off, we are going to be doing One Piece Movie 1, One Piece The Great Gold Pirate. I'm very excited to talk about this, so yeah, without further ado, let's just hop right into this. So what is the story for One Piece Movie 1? Basically, taking place right after Usopp joins the Straw Hat Pirates, we find ourselves traveling the sea while there's kind of a bit of news going around. Well, not only news, it's been around for a while, about a great pirate called Wunin the Gold Pirate, who stole a third of the world's golden treasure and currently has it locked away on some island somewhere. And now our Straw Hats wind up in a situation that eventually leads them to said island where they're trying to go and find the gold while they're also being chased by an evil villain who also wants the gold and is obsessed with gold. And yeah, it's not a great description, but in fairness, this movie isn't that long, so that's all I can really say without spoiling too much, so we're just gonna roll with it. So, in terms of spoiler-free thoughts on this movie, honestly, I'm a bit mixed. Like, I wasn't expecting to go into this movie thinking it's gonna be the greatest film ever, be the most phenomenally incredible, just amazing film for any movie ever. But I was curious to see if maybe it could do something like how the first Pokemon movie is regarded as one of the best movies in the franchise. And so I was curious to see if maybe One Piece could kind of pull off that vibe as well. And for this movie, they didn't do that. Honestly, if I had to be honest, this movie kind of had some iffy moments for me. I didn't love it. However, for being such a short movie at only around 50 or so minutes, it is really freaking fun. Like, there are so many great parts of this that I could talk about. Now, there's also a few things I can complain about as well, which are kind of a big issue, but I'll go over them a bit later. But to kind of go over some of the things I loved, I really love the Straw Hats in this. While I do miss the fact that Sanji wasn't in this film, I do think that who they had on the cast for this, you know, Nami, Luffy, Zoro, and Usopp, they're still a great cast of characters, and they're all characters I really like. So even if it was just their group, I still really enjoyed it. And the fact that we got to kind of go back and visit how the Straw Hats were back then, because I kind of forgot how long it's been, because I started watching One Piece a while ago. So now that I'm back here, I'm just like, wow, things have changed a lot since back then, and I just enjoyed it. I think that seeing some of those older shenanigans before we got what we have in One Piece today was interesting, and I really like that. In fact, if I had to say the most strong aspect of this movie, it would have to be the comedy. Like, I thought this movie was really freaking funny. Like, there were so many good jokes there. It's not like the most ha-ha best type of comedy ever. However, I laughed way more than I expected to. Like, with how many issues I kind of have with this movie at times, even though I still think it's a very enjoyable movie, the comedy I think is what really carried it, because the characters do so many silly or goofy things, which I can go into more about in the spoiler section, but they do so many goofy and funny things that I just find super enjoyable, and I like how the Straw Hats go about this little treasure hunt adventure. It's very fun and entertaining, and while I do have one issue which I'll get to in a bit, I think that overall this film had a lot of funny moments that I really liked. And yeah, another thing I can kind of compliment this movie on is definitely its emotional moments. Like, it's not like a super emotional movie, but when it had a few more calm moments with a bit more of a serious tone to them, well, not really serious, but more so calm tone, like kind of reflecting on things and stuff like that, I think it did it good. Like, I did feel some emotion while watching some of these parts with these characters, and it was really nice. I liked it a lot, and I just think that moments like that were nice in this film, even though they were very far and few between. Like, they didn't happen that often. But yeah, going over, I think the next thing I want to talk about, which is the biggest negative I have to give this movie, is the pacing. Like, normally you're so used to One Piece being so padded out with just a ton of filler stuff to drag it out, especially with some of the later stuff. Like, I'm still astounded that I managed to get through Dressrosa through the anime instead of just picking up the manga or anything. But basically, I was thinking that maybe this movie would have a bit more of a more smooth pacing to it because it's a movie. It's not as slow as the anime. It doesn't have to worry about pumping out new episodes. It's just one movie. However, it's funny because with this movie, it has the opposite issue of the anime. Whereas the anime goes too slow, this movie goes too fast. Like, so many things happen at once that I would be completely lost. Like, I was so confused whenever I look away. Like, I always had to rewind and be like, wait, how did we get here? Wait, that happened now? Like, The pacing of this movie is absurdly fast. It is so quick. It's like a blink and you miss it moment. They are just moving the plot along so quickly that you don't really feel like, all right, it's a slow, smooth movement to get to the climax and everything. Like, I don't really get that. It just feels like things are happening. This is just kind of going from thing to thing to thing. There's no real coherence to it all. It's just kind of doing everything in a row. It's not trying to take things in a way that moves along smoothly while also keeping the story connected together. But even so, I do think this is a very enjoyable movie in a lot of ways. And while I don't think it'd be that fun to rewatch multiple times, to watch it once, yeah, watch it once. It's still a fun movie. There's still many great moments in this. The Straw Hats being the Straw Hats. In fact, some Straw Hats doing some really goofy things that you wouldn't expect them to do, but it's still very fun, even if it's not perfect. And I think the pacing is the only thing that really holds this movie down, because I feel like if the pacing was maybe like 10 or 15 minutes longer, like if they tried to stretch the movie out just a bit longer to kind of flesh things out, it would have been a lot more entertaining. It's just at around 50 minutes, it just didn't hit the same as some of the other movies I've seen have. Like, if you've seen the first Pokemon movie, you can realize how well the pacing can be for a movie and just how emotional it can get you. But even so, this movie does have some good emotional moments, and overall, I very much enjoyed it and I had a good time with it. And yeah, that's all I can really say without spoiling, so we're just going to the spoiler section now. Here's a timestamp from the spoilers, and if you have seen this movie, I recommend sticking around here my thoughts, but yeah, just skip to the end to get any spoilers. But if you have seen it, I recommend sticking around here my thoughts. So yeah, I'm going to catch up with 5, and I'm going to enter the spoiler section for this movie. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so going over a few other minor negatives, I'd have to say that the villain for this movie was incredibly weak. They are your basic, generic kind of villain who's just looking for treasure and trying to find all the gold, and I definitely feel that this movie's villain, El Drago, is one of the weakest parts of this movie, especially with how he doesn't really have any real menace behind him. His devil fruit ability of like his scream fruit, I think it's what they called it, wasn't that intimidating, and I just wasn't that into his character at all. And I definitely think that the only time he was kind of fun to watch was when Luffy was just beating him up, but even then, their fight wasn't super entertaining at times. It's still a decent fight, but there was no real drama between them. Like, there was no reason for us to really care about this fight between these two. Now, I understand there doesn't always need to be a reason for characters in One Piece to fight, or in any type of media to fight, but I just wish that overall this villain was a bit more fleshed out instead of just being a "ha, I will hold the gold" type character. But it is what it is. He played his part fine. He was just the villain that Luffy beat up. Although he wasn't the weakest part of this film, that would go to the pacing itself, as I mentioned earlier. I still think as a villain, he could have been a bit more. He doesn't need to be like super in-depth about his character. He doesn't have to have a lot of important backstory to who he is as a character. I just wish we had a little bit more to him. But as a villain, he served his role fine, and it's okay. Moving past that though, the next thing I want to talk about are the characters of Tobio and his grandpa, who are characters that, for the film, are decent enough. Tobio is basically this kid who wants to go off and be a pirate at the start of the movie to see if he can maybe join Wunan's crew, because he thinks that Wunan is still alive with all of his treasure. And you also have his grandpa, who later in the movie is revealed to actually have been a close friend with Wunan, which I think for what they did in the story, it was nice, especially with how it reveals that Wunan actually took Tobio's grandfather's words to heart about how gold is just basically like stone at the end of the day, and that the real treasure are all the experiences he had along the way to get the gold. And that was a nice little message, which is ironic for a pirate show that's all about kind of stealing stuff and things like that, but it is what it is. I just hope that's not how the One Piece ends up being, but we'll see. But yeah, overall, I still think that despite the fact that their characters were kind of just there to add a bit more emotional weight to the story, they were still good characters. And I like the fact that at the end, Tobio went from being, I have to be a pirate, to join this guy's crew, and stays like, I don't know what I want to do yet, but I'll figure it out, which is a nice little thing for him to learn about. And overall, it had a very nice little message in there, and I liked it a lot. And yeah. Another thing I'd like to talk about is how I'm kind of disappointed with the developments of certain characters, such as the character of Galas, who seemed like a swordsman who was just trying to do things for gold, but then all of a sudden when he's fighting Zoro, Zoro's just like, you don't want to use your sword to get this gold, I know that. And I don't know where that sudden emotional moment came from. I kind of wish that we went a little deeper into Golas's character before kind of just doing that little reveal of, huh? You mean that he actually doesn't want to do all this sword fighting stuff for gold? There's more to his character? I would have loved to see maybe a bit more on him and maybe who he was and how he got to this point, but it is what it is. It's just another case of the movie has to move along, so it can't really go too deep into any of these characters' stories or anything. But yeah. overall, there are a lot of fun moments to this film. While I wouldn't say it's perfect, 100% amazing, or anything even close to what some of the One Piece stories I've seen have been, it's still an entertaining movie, even if it is missing some oomph to it. Like how there are moments in this movie which kind of feel like the final fight, as I mentioned, between Luffy and El Drago. Their whole fight didn't feel as strong as it could have been. I still think there's a lot of fun to this movie, and I actually did think that overall it was very enjoyable. I wouldn't watch it again, but for a one small movie experience that's just there to kind of fill in a bit more extra content for One Piece, it did its job, and I liked it. I think it's a fun little film to watch once and maybe have a good laugh at, because there's some good jokes in there. Like how Luffy is hearing this old guy's story about how he falls off a cliff, and then Luffy asks, "So did you die?" Even though the dude who's telling him the story is literally the guy who fell off the cliff, but there's moments like that that are funny. Or like how when Nami was trying to reveal something on the map, she holds up a match under it, and it's just like, there's something under the map if we hold fire under it, and then suddenly the whole map just burns up, which was a bit out of character for Nami, who's usually a lot more careful, but it was still so funny. I didn't care. It was very funny. And overall, I just had fun. There were some great jokes in there, and I enjoyed myself. And yeah, that's all I really have to say. So we're at the conclusion of this video. What are my final thoughts? Overall, I enjoyed myself. I had a good time with this movie, and while it's not perfect, I definitely think it's a fun movie to just kind of sit down and pass the time with. And that's why I give One Piece Movie 1, The Great Gold Pirate, a 7 out of 10. A decently enjoyable movie, and while I probably wouldn't watch it again, it was still a fun time and I enjoyed it. So yeah, that's all I really have to say, and thank you all for watching. If you're new to the JJC Anime channel, don't forget to subscribe. I was going to anime fans to the channel, and I'll see you all for One Piece Movie 2. Peace!